You're listening to Keith Sports News. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to KSN Keith Sports News episode number 18. All right. So, the last episode I did was a special 1-hour edition after missing Monday 1 week ago and the Friday before that. So I made up for it by doing a special 1-hour edition. Now we're back to our regular time, which is about 30 minutes. All right. So, Joe had a great weekend. If you did, that's great to know. Usually I don't have any big plans for the weekend, but I would just, first of all, I live in South Louisiana. It's been raining like the whole weekend, so there's like no need to go out in the rain unless if it's something important. But if it's not important, then I would just stay inside. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, there's actually not that much to talk about from based on what I saw and what I know, what I heard in the world of sports. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these here. Okay, so you guys know, or you might know that I have the Canadian sports channels, okay? And a bunch of nights I would tune in to watch their Sports Center show, the Canadian Sports Center, which is the Canadian version of ESPN. And that's basically where I get my hockey news, all right? So, the Four Nations face-off ended a couple nights ago, so the NHL season has resumed, okay? And the big story that they talked about was Alexander Ovechkin, the Russian hockey player who plays for the Washington Capitals. The reason why he's the big story is because he is 13 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's NHL goals record. That's amazing. And he is 39 years old, and he's still, for his age, that's amazing that he can still play this well. My oldest brother, who is a big hockey fan, even though he lives in South Louisiana, that's his favorite player. And I remember when he won the Stanley Cup final back in 2018. And I remember watching some of their parade coverage. It was pretty wild. So, and here he is, still playing, 13 goals away. And they were showing the game that he played, the Washington Capitals against the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid, yes, the player that scored the game-winning goal in the Four Nations face-off. That was the game. And there was a sign, like a fan sign that basically said, "Connor, I love you, but why did you beat Team USA?" or something like that. That was kind of funny. But yeah. Ovechkin, I believe, scored 4 goals, which they call it a hat trick. And then, fans will start tossing their caps onto the ice. That's always cool to watch. But, yeah, 13 goals away. I believe the regular season ends in mid-April. So there is a possibility that he can break the record before the regular season's over. Let me see the standings here. I don't know are the Washington Capitals any good? Like, can they make the postseason, the playoffs? I know about half the teams make the playoffs, just like in the NBA. let me look at the standings here. Now the standings are based on the points, okay? All right. So, the Washington Capitals, they are in the Metropolitan Division and they are in first place. So, yes, they will make the playoffs and they are ahead by 14 points. So, yes, I'm sure they'll make the playoffs for sure. Yeah, do I want him to break the record? Absolutely. I always want to see history making. Do I think he'll break the record before the season's over? I think he can. After that performance that he had against Connor McDavid's team, I think he can. Now, if he breaks the record, obviously we all want him to break the record when the Washington Capitals are playing at home. But for some reason, I think if he breaks the record, it's going to be when they're on the visiting team. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of Albert Pujols, the great Dominican baseball player who just retired about 2 years ago. He was in the 700 home run club, and he joined the 700 home run club when he did that in Dodger Stadium. He was on the visiting team, but obviously all the fans, the LA fans, were happy. So, but obviously, I hope Ovechkin breaks the record when the Capitals are at home ice, you know. What if he does it in the playoffs? That would be very, very special. And if he breaks the record, I believe it's like at 890-something goals. So, I'm sure he's going to go for 900. Why not? If he breaks the record, he is not too far away from 900. So, he will go down as one of the all-time greats. And hopefully, let's say he's like a few goals away from breaking the record or tying the record at least. Let's hope Wayne Gretzky is there in the arena watching. Because I say that because in tennis, back in the old days, the man who had the most Grand Slam titles was Pete Sampras. And Roger Federer broke that record. He won the Wimbledon Championships in 2009, and that's when he passed Sampras' Grand Slam titles record, and Sampras was at the at center court watching history being made. So hopefully Wayne Gretzky will be there as well if Alexander Ovechkin breaks the record. So yeah, that is the big story. That's why I usually talk about the big story first if it's really that big of a deal, which it is. A 39-year-old player. That's amazing. And he's a big dude. I'm sure he'll be in next year's Winter Olympics. So, which begins about, less than a year from now. It'll be great. Alright, so we move on from hockey to really the only sporting event I really watched, which is curling. Yes, Canada loves that sport as well as hockey. So, since I have the TSN channels, every year during this time of the year they showed a big curling event called the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, which is women's curling. All Canadian players. It's like a Canadian championship, alright? So they would have this every year during this time of the year, and the finals, a championship game, took place. It was Team Rachel Homan against Team Carrie Anerson, which those are like the two best teams, clearly. And these two faced each other a lot. I got the sniffles. Excuse me. Well, don't you hate this? It's like allergy season. So, I actually I watched that match pretty much from start to finish. Um, but I had the sound muted the entire time because I was listening to music all day. Yeah, which I don't really do very often, listening to music all day long. And I listened to this one artist the entire time because his birthday is today. That's why I did it. His name is George Thorogood. He is one of my all-time favorites. So I was listening to his songs all day, all evening. Yeah, marathon. There's certain bands where I can listen to them for hours and hours, and he's one of them. So I was listening to his songs while watching the Scotties Tournament of Hearts Championship Final. So Team Homan was undefeated, alright? So they were representing Team Canada in this final. And I know people say curling is a weird sport. It is kind of weird in a way. But if you watch enough of it, then you'll understand the rules. I kind of started watching, I think I remember the first time I watched curling was in the 2018 Winter Olympics, because that was the first event that they had. Yeah, apparently curling would start a little early before the opening ceremony began. And the same thing happened in the 2022 Winter Olympics. So this one was held in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. And the final was between, I'm looking at the Wikipedia article. Okay, so Team Canada, 8-0. Their win-loss record was 8-0. So they're clearly the best team with Rachel Homan and Carrie Anderson from representing Manitoba. Their win-loss record is 6-2. A lot of teams qualified for this. I mean, curling is a big sport up in Canada. All right. So the championship. All right. So there's 10 ends, which are basically 10 rounds. So there's 4 players on each team. They all get 2 stones to throw on the ice. So that's a total of 8 stones per end. Okay. And Team Homan was leading 2-0 after 3 ends, and then oh wait, no, that was the, oops, I'm looking at the wrong game. Looking at the wrong one. Okay, here we go, the final. Okay. So, it was tied 1-1 after the 4th end, and then the 5th end Team Canada took a 2-1 to lead, and then they scored 4 more, and they won this by 6-1 is the final. They were clearly the best team. So what this means is, in about a month or so, they will have the Women's World Curling Championships. It's around St. Paddy's Day, okay? So, her team, Rachel Homan's team, Team Canada, will be there because they are the champions and clearly the best team in Canada. And they won the Scotties Tournament of Hearts last year. And I believe years before that, Carrie Anderson's team won the Scotties 3 or 4 years in a row, which is crazy. So yeah, these two, they faced each other a lot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the Women's World Curling Championships. It's going to be held in South Korea, and that's probably the same arena where they had the Winter Olympics back in 2018, I think. So yeah, and 1 year from now will be the Winter Olympics, like I said. So I'll be looking forward to that as well. I really like the mixed doubles curling. it's only two people, a male and a female. It's kind of interesting. And the 2022 Winter Olympics, the first thing that they showed was mixed doubles curling, and that's kind of how I kind of got into it for a while. So, and man, that was 3 years ago already, and we're just less than 1 year until next year's Winter Olympics, which will be held in Italy. All right. So yeah, there really not much to talk about, but I did have some news to share. All right. So we're really entering kind of a, I guess you can say, a quiet time in sports. I remember Christopher Mad Dog Russo, one of my favorite shows to listen to, he kind of mentioned that after the NFL season ended. But then you got the Four Nations face-off, and that is how more people started watching hockey, because there wasn't much happening for big sporting events. All right, so and they had the Four Nations face-off. They had that during the best time of the year. They weren't really competing with any other sports league. So yeah, I can't believe February is almost over already. All right. Okay, a show. Yeah, I mentioned that I like Christopher Mad Dog Russo's show on Sirius XM. Speaking of that, there's another show that I started to listen to. It's a tennis podcast, because sometimes I watch tennis from time to time. Okay, and it's on Sirius XM. Mad Dog Unleashed, the channel name, and the show is called Holding Court with Patrick McEnroe. So if you follow tennis, mainly on ESPN, which they have one of the 3 out of the 4 Grand Slams coverage on ESPN. Patrick McEnroe is one of the announcers. So yeah, he has his own show. Once a week, every Saturday. But if you listen to it live, it's like Saturday morning at like 7 or 8 a.m. Central. But I'm like, damn, I'm not gonna wake up that early just to listen to that show. But the good news is that you can listen to that show at any time. Yes, on demand, as they would say. So here is how I got into that show. This past Friday, I was listening to 2 shows live. So I would go back and forth. Whenever this show's going on commercial break, I would switch to the other one. They are the Paul Feinbaum Show and Christopher Mad Dog Russo, Mad Dog Unleashed. So Mad Dog Unleashed was on a commercial break for a little bit, and then I listened. It was something about Patrick McEnroe's show, Holding Court. So yeah, he mainly talks about tennis, but he'll talk about some other sports from time to time. So yeah, I added that to my library so that I won't forget. And speaking of tennis, we are about to enter the month of March, and usually March has 2 big events, mainly for women's tennis. Indian Wells in California, and the Miami Open in South Florida. The Miami Open is going to be in Hard Rock Stadium, the main courts. Hard Rock Stadium is the home of the Miami Hurricane and the Miami Dolphins. That's really cool. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope I don't forget, but I don't think I will, because sometimes Mad Dog mentions tennis from time to time. And apparently, this just popped in my head. I almost forgot to mention this. The number 1 seeded men's player, Yannick Sinner, is suspended for using some type of what's the name of the substance that he was using? But I believe, yeah, wow. So his last match was the Australian Open final, which he won a month ago. The number 1 seeded player. Okay, doping ban. Didn't that happen to Maria Sharapova back in 2016? I don't know how. I think he's going to be suspended for a couple of months, I think. So, which that's unfortunate for him. But at the same time, at least he's not going to miss a Grand Slam, because the next Grand Slam won't be until 3 months from now, which is the French Open, Roland Garros. That'll begin on Memorial Day weekend. So he really is suspended. I'm looking on the Wikipedia article page. So it says, for his 2024 positive test for close to ball, the World Anti-Doping Agency announced in February 2025 they entered a case resolution agreement with Sinner. They accepted the cause and explanation of the positive test, but stated an athlete bears responsibility for the entourage's negligence. For some reason, I can't pronounce that word. A 3-month suspension was held down, with Sinner being ineligible from tennis competition from February 9 to May 4, 2025. Okay, so he'll be able to return to the French Open, which will be a few weeks after May 4. Some players reacted with criticism of the process, notably Novak Djokovic, who at the press conference at the 2025 Qatar Open expressed the opinion that the majority of the players feel like there is favoritism happening, citing the advantages that the high-ranked players have to rapid legal advice. Man, Sinner is clearly the best player. If you look at the standing or the ranking system, they do it by points, kind of like hockey with the standings. He has a lot more points than the number 2 seeded player, which I believe is Alexander Zverev, and that is who Sinner beat in the Australian Open final. So yeah, I'll listen to the Patrick McEnroe show from time to time. And yeah, all right. So, and speaking of March, we are on the road to March Madness, which is, the big college basketball tournament. I believe that begins, like around St. Patrick's Day. That usually, like mid-March, that's usually when the March Madness tournament begins. But before that, you have the conference tournaments. The SEC tournament is the big thing. Let me tell you, man, SEC basketball is on a different level. Like, I think it was last weekend, Auburn faced Alabama, number 1 against number 2. Yeah. 2 SEC teams. And it was a high-scoring game for college basketball because they play 2 20-minute quarters. The NBA plays 4 12-minute quarters. So the NBA plays a total of 48 minutes. College plays a total of 40. I don't know why they're not the same. In baseball it's the same. 9 innings. Football is the same. American football is the same. 4 15-minute quarters. So why can't basketball be the same? I don't understand that. No wonder why NBA games are always much more high scoring than college basketball. But in the Olympics, pro basketball players, it's 4 10-minute quarters. That's why the games are kind of shorter. So, but yeah, every year I do my March Madness tournament challenge just for the fun of it, even though it's always terrible for me because I don't follow much of the sport, but I kind of always look forward to that. Alright, the last thing here I want to talk about is a comment someone left. Excuse me. That I missed from the last episode. Alright, so comments from a subscriber named 5Tayer. So 5Tayer, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for watching or listening to the KSN episodes. So he commented from KSN episode 16, which was my Super Bowl 59 recap. He says, I will be watching the UFL this season like I did last year. Go Battlehawks. All right. That's awesome. the UFL season begins in about a month from now. I believe March 30th or March 28th, March 20th, the last weekend of March. So, yeah, go Battlehawks. That is a St. Louis team. Yes, they play at the Dome at America Center. I think that's the name of the place. The St. Louis Rams used to play there. So, thankfully, they kept that dome after the Rams left St. Louis. And speaking of the Battlehawks, I did watch the UFL last year. The Battlehawks really should have been in the championship game. Somehow they couldn't beat San Antonio, the San Antonio Brahmas. Somehow they lost to that team. They were like a big favorite. The game was in St. Louis. The championship game was in St. Louis. I mean, that would have been epic. Having the Battlehawks in the championship game in St. Louis, but that didn't happen. And if you saw that championship game, it was a complete disaster for the San Antonio Brahmas. I watched that game. It was on Father's Day, Sunday afternoon, and it was unfortunate. A shutout, 25-0. The Birmingham Stallions. Can any team stop the Stallions? I hope so. Maybe it'll be the Battlehawks. We'll see. I don't know where this year's championship game will be. Because the year before, 2023, it was both. You had both the XFL and the USFL. And then 2024, last year, they merged. And this was their first merger season with the UFL. So, yeah, we shall see. So spring football will begin in about a month from now. And then Five Taylor also left another comment from my last episode, KSN episode 17. He says, "Glad you saw that message I sent you. I will be looking forward to that game as well." He's talking about the baseball game between the opening day game between the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Yankees, the game that Joe Buck will return to baseball, call a game for the first time since the end of the 2021 World Series. He also says, regarding ESPN losing the MLB, I believe that either Prime Video or Netflix will take over Sunday Night Baseball. I think they could work for it. If not them, my other idea is the CW network. While it would be nice, I can't really see NBC taking it because of Sunday Night Football. That would be a nightmare for both leagues and all fans. Yeah. So it is official. ESPN's final season with the MLB is this season. It's kind of a shame because I really do like the ESPN guys, the commentators. I do like listening to that podcast, Baseball Tonight, with Buster Olney. So I guess Buster Olney will still do his podcast next year, even though ESPN lost the rights to the MLB Sunday Night Baseball coverage. But I kind of miss the old ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, back when Dan Shulman was the announcer. His final season of that was in 2017, I believe. 2018, Matt Vasgersian took over. Dan is originally from Toronto, so he basically became the voice of the Toronto Blue Jays on Sportsnet, their Canadian channel. And also, ESPN would used to have a Monday night baseball game and a Wednesday night baseball game, but they haven't done that in years. I think it's because they lost a lot of their announcers, and so they just stuck with Sunday Night Baseball ever since. So, the reason why I said NBC is because I think they didn't do this last year, but I think they did this the year before. Remember they used to have late Sunday morning baseball on Peacock? I don't know if it was only on Peacock or if it was both on Peacock and NBC. Sunday Night Football is on NBC and Peacock. So, just like the Olympics as well. Yeah, but but they can do Sunday Night Baseball until the NFL season starts, I think. Maybe. Um, you mentioned, Five Taylor mentions Netflix. Is Netflix really going to have, like, some sporting events now? I mean, I guess their first one was the, the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul event. Then they had 3 Christmas games, 3 NFL Christmas games on a Wednesday, which I thought was totally unnecessary to have that. You know, isn't Christmas Day NBA's day? And now they're having, every Monday night, they're having WWE Monday Night Raw. Prime Video. For the past couple years, they've been having Thursday Night Football. Although I think some Yankees games are on Prime Video. Only on Prime Video, right? So you can't watch the game on the Yes Network. That's kind of weird. The CW Network, all I know is that during the college football season, they'll have an ACC game on the CW Network. And the announcer, let me see if I can pronounce his name. The announcer, Tom Brennaman, who used to be the voice of the Cincinnati Reds, and I miss that guy. It's a shame that he got fired. So, his father was also a longtime Cincinnati Reds announcer for radio. So, yeah, I guess some network will be hosting Sunday Night Baseball. What if it's Fox? Please don't let it be Fox. Because Fox, they're going to keep hosting MLB for the next couple of years. Now, there's still MLB on TBS. Maybe TBS will take over. I haven't thought of TBS. TBS, they would have like a Tuesday night game, I think. Maybe they'll... That's my guess. TBS. I kind of like the TBS guys. So... I wouldn't mind if TBS decides to take over. My only problem with TBS is that their score bug is too small, and they've had the same score bug for 6 years. 7 years. Like, isn't it time for them to change it? Hopefully they'll finally change it. Alright, so that is it for KSN. Oh, look, and we hit over 30 minutes, so good thing I talked about everything. And I'll be back on Friday, so I'll try to think on what I can talk about. Who knows? There might be some big stories on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. So, thank you for listening to KSN. I'll see you again later in the week on Friday, which is the last day of February. Bye-bye. See you then. Thank you for listening to Keep Sports News.